people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
I thought David wanted to fight Zurdo as Zurdo became champion in that cruiserweight division.
I mean, he said he would like to, but there's still politics in that. They got to see, is Golden Boy going to be willing, when they can actually get it done.
He's the B-side to everybody, bro. He's the B-side to Beterbiev. He's the B-side to Bivol. He's the B-side to Zurdo. This dude has no belts. Outside of Canelo.
We called in here to say that he's not worth nothing again.
Outside of Canelo, what the fuck does he bring? Like, he's trying to call out all the other champions that have belts. Like, he told you, I ain't leaving this network. Bro, they're just so confusing. Like, their shit is all over the place, bro. Just like their fucking camps now.
Why
Arizona, Seattle, Florida. Like, that's just crazy. And you know what else he said, bro? When I asked him, I told him this Vosdick shit is meaningless. So you're just telling me that you're not staying at 68 to fight the other undefeated dudes that are there, that are ranked in the top 4, like you're in Billy's or Bazinian. Like, fucking wipe them out, bro. Why you gotta go up and fight another David Lemieux at 175 pounds?
I don't know who that caller was by name, but what I do know is that was a sobering take on the entire situation, that what David Benavidez and his team have done is create a lot of confusion. Not but a few weeks ago, when he was asked if he would be willing to cross over to another side of the street to fight Canelo Alvarez, David, in so many words, said no.
Fuck no.
Because he said Al Heyman pays him well, or has been paying him well. He treats him good. And when you think about it,
use your head.
If in that situation you weren't willing to cross the street for a Canelo Alvarez, even hypothetically, then how are you going to get the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol? How are you going to get Zurdo Ramirez in the ring? When the caller said that David doesn't actually bring anything to the table, he's right.
David's fans aren't going to like the sound of that, but what leverage would David have over any of those guys?
What?
Over Dimitri, over Artur, over Zurdo.
When you say that you would not cross the street for Canelo, then how would you presume to fight any one of them? Dimitri's with Matchroom, Artur's with Top Rank, Zurdo's with Golden Boy.
It doesn't make sense.
David's fans don't make sense. They spend all day and night talking about how Canelo Alvarez is ducking. Canelo Alvarez doesn't want David Benavidez. He doesn't want to fight him. He's not gonna fight him.
Let's say that's true.
Just for argument's sake, I will entertain you. I will entertain your argument to say that if that's true, isn't that all the more reason for David to stop wasting time on him? Turki Al-Sheikh just offered you the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol in Saudi for what I've no doubts would be a lot of money, more money than you've been making.
David Benavidez tagged Turki Al-Sheikh in his Instagram post, hoping that he would pay for a Canelo Alvarez fight, and Turki responded by offering him the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol instead.
So, if it's the way that David's fans say it is, and Canelo Alvarez is ducking, Canelo Alvarez will not fight him. He's not gonna fight him. He's scared. All these different things. If that's true, and it's the way that you say it is, shouldn't David just forget about Canelo, focus on the Vosdick fight, so that he can get to the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol?
I don't understand.
You guys have been saying day in, day out, for weeks, for months, that Canelo Alvarez doesn't want nothing to do with the guy. So then why are you still focused on him if Turki Al-Sheikh just offered you undisputed? He just offered you undisputed at 175, and all you guys can talk about is Canelo.
The Canelo you say doesn't want to fight.
So here's what I think.
What?
David's fans don't want David to move up, and they don't want him to fight the winner of that fight because they're afraid he'll lose. If and when he loses, all the hullabaloo about a Canelo fight, it goes out the window. All this stuff about it hurting Canelo Alvarez's legacy, your ability to hurt his legacy is only as good as your ability to create your own.
Right now, you ain't got one.
All this stuff about it hurting Canelo's legacy, if he doesn't fight David, Floyd Mayweather didn't fight Paul Williams, didn't fight Paulie Spadafora, didn't fight Antonio Margarito, or Amir Khan, or Gennady Golovkin, or Keith Thurman, or any of the other fighters who called him out. And that didn't stop him from getting in the Hall of Fame. It didn't actually hurt his legacy, because none of those fighters' legacies were greater than his.
Could perform this exercise on any number of fighters throughout the annals of boxing history.
David's ability to hurt Canelo's legacy is only as good as his ability to create his own, and I suspect his fans don't want him to. They don't actually want him to go up there to 175 and fight the winner of Bivol versus Beterbiev, because if he loses, the entire conversation goes out the window.
You know how fickle the mob is.
They used to herald Errol Spence Jr. as the second coming of Sugar Ray Leonard or Sugar Ray Robinson. They used to say things like he would beat Canelo Alvarez, up until Terrence got his hands on him. Now, you can barely find anybody talking about the man.
The mob is fickle, brother.
Spending so much time trying to convince the world that Canelo Alvarez is scared and the fight will never happen, that what if you succeeded? What if you did convince the world that were true?
Then what?
That's all the more reason for David Benavidez to move up, isn't it?
It's not that I agree with these people.
It's not that I believe it, it's that they believe it. So if they believe it so much, they should be urging David to take up Turki Al-Sheikh on his offer. They believe it so much.
Or do they?
I'm starting to wonder. I'm starting to wonder how much they believe it or don't believe it. I'm starting to wonder how much does David really want the winner of that fight, because the opportunity is there.
Fighting Vosdik is supposed to be a segue to that.
But when you say that you would also move up to cruiserweight for Zurdo Ramirez,
then what's the point in fighting Vosdik?
I'm starting to think the only reason he's fighting Vosdik is because maybe he can't make 168 anymore. He's not actually after the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. He just needs to keep busy. That's a guy that's around. He's in his mid-30s.
Older guy.
He's not committed to undisputed at 175, because if he were, he wouldn't also be looking at Zurdo Ramirez. And only if he wins, only if he becomes WBA champion. If he loses...
Is David gonna fight Arsen Goulamarian?
My thoughts. I don't think David's committed to fighting the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. And if I'm wrong, prove me wrong, because I'd be happy to see him fight the winner of that fight if the Canelo fight isn't happening. Now, as a result of David Benavidez's expressed interest in having Turki Al-Sheikh bankroll the Canelo Alvarez fight, his old buddy and PBC stablemate, David Morell, or someone on David Morell's behalf, someone that goes by the name Cesar Seda, said Turki Al-Sheikh, the fight that needs to be done and where you are going to really test the Benavidez's testicular fortitude, and that is not about the money, is making David Benavidez face David Morell in between the first Bivol versus Beterbiev fight and then the winners face each other. It's a way better business decision for boxing. Nothing personal. It's all about boxing. Mention David Morell on the equation and you will see Mr. Al-Sheikh.
This is a member of David Morell's team?
No, I didn't say that. I said on David Morell's behalf. Whoever Cesar Seda is, he's speaking on David Morell's behalf, talking him up, and we know why. We know how we got here.
This is just an interested party.
Someone who is so interested in seeing David Benavidez face David Morell, likely because he sees what I see. He notices what I notice, that David Benavidez, for all the time that he spent at 168 pounds, he never faced a puncher, a bona fide puncher, and that's what David Morell looks like. That's what he's proving to be, a puncher, a violent one, a strong one.
How could David Benavidez have been at 168 all this time and never fought a puncher?
Likely because they didn't want him to. Likely because in the Ronald Gavril fight, he walked into a shot and got sat on his back pocket. If you pay close attention to the matchmaking, it's right there. Tyrone Davis, Ronald Ellis, Caleb Plant, Demetrius Andrade, these are not punchers.
David Lemieux was a puncher.
Yeah, he was a puncher at 160. He was a puncher at middleweight, not super middleweight. David faced the faded husk of David Lemieux, who didn't prove anything as a super middleweight. So let me stop you right there.
So now you're saying David Benavidez should fight David Morell.
I'm saying that it's curious that he hasn't fought David Morell already when he's right there and there are no politics, no real politics involved, because they fight on the same platforms under the same banner.
That's what I'm saying.
We have a contract for 3 fights. We have Bivol, Andrade, we have Charlo, we have David Morell, if everything goes well, then I'm pretty sure it's going to go well. So I wouldn't sign that contract for 168 if I didn't think he was going to do 168. Like I said, we already have a contract for 3 fights. And that fight was Caleb Plant, David Morell, Boo Boo, and a possibility with
The idea that David Benavidez would or should face David Morell is not a Canelo fan's invention. That idea was put there by David Benavidez's own team, his own father, his own promoter.
I didn't come up with that.
Short story. Back when David Morell was only 5-0, he was approached by Team Benavidez, but at that time they felt it was too soon for David Morell to face him. Fast forward a couple of fights.
It gets revisited.
Last year it got revisited, and according to David Benavidez's father, according to David Benavidez's promoter, the fight was all but done and ready to go.
Contract was signed.
According to them it was, but according to David...
Already had a fight with Morell lined up, and all the stuff you see.
Yeah, no, there's no fight with Morell lined up. I just seen that yesterday. That supposedly they said I agreed to the fight. I'm like, man, I bet this is my first time seeing about it. We're not fighting Morell. Everything that's been coming out that saying that we agreed to the fight. I haven't even seen anything. I didn't agree to anything.
Clearly, someone was lying, and it appears who was lying. David Benavidez's own team, his own father, his own promoter. You can make of that what you will, but this is what people are talking about. David Benavidez's aversion to facing his stablemate in what should be an easy fight to make. Should we involve Turki Al-Sheikh and the Saudis to make what would be a simple in-house fight, an inexpensive one?
You need Saudis to make that happen?
Al Heyman can't make it happen? Amazon Prime, that's not enough? You have to get Turki Al-Sheikh to put these two guys in a ring? This is what people are talking about.
What I think.
If David Morell can't get that Benavidez fight, but he really can't get Caleb Plant either, or Jermall Charlo, or anyone of substance at or around these weights on the PBC side of things, if he can't do that, then he needs to jump ship. He needs to go. That's what Subriel Matias did, Michelle Rivera,
Kenny Sims,
several others. That's what they all did. When options became scarce, they took their business elsewhere. And if David can't get any of the high-profile fights with the high-profile super middleweights or middleweights on the PBC side of things, then what is he doing there, and what is he waiting for?
Want to do more interviews about it?
Have more articles written about you? Or do you want some traction? Do you want your career to gain some traction, some footing? Do you want to be in fights, or do you want to just talk about it?
I think he should go to Matchroom.
They already have Cuban amateur standout Andy Cruz. Maybe you could pair them up. Have David Morell fighting on his undercards. Make it like Havana Nights or something, Taste of Cuba. I don't know, he needs to do something, because simply staying on the PBC side of things isn't doing much for his profile. Yeah, they have some of the somebodies at 168, but he doesn't seem to be getting any fights with them. Doesn't look like he's getting David Benavidez, so then what's the point in being over there?
What are you doing?
Conversation is stale. I'm sick of talking about it. It's clear as day. Morell versus Benavidez. It's not going to happen. So jump ship. Go somewhere else. Fight someone else. Do something else.
Do something.
Warren reportedly unhappy that the Wilder Zhang negotiations have been leaked. A lot of people speculated online. Might have been you. Any truth to that?
Oh, leaking it?
Not leaking it. But
no, absolutely not. I've answered it and said no. Mike Coppinger actually messaged me about it, and I said no. And he still put the story out because his source was come from somewhere else. But absolutely not. No, I mean, I've got no reason to put that fight out there. And like I said earlier, like myself, George, Frank, His Excellency, we literally talk about 30 fights a week. And that fight, I'm sure, has been mentioned, as has Wilder Joshua, Caballero Dubois, Hergovich Joshua, I don't know, Miller against Jojo, like literally dozens of fights. So that fight is definitely not mine.
And last one.
It's a bit hard to imagine that Wilder can ever return to the forefront of the heavyweight division without a fight like this. Everything that's happening in Saudi.
And it's all happening so fast.
I mean, the Saudis are paying excellent purses out to the fighters that are willing to fight, but not just for any fight, any old run-of-the-mill fight, any old schlock.
Wilder versus Zhang, as a rumor, was put out there by Mike Coppinger, but Eddie Hearn is saying nothing is finalized, nothing is done. He went ahead and put that out there without confirmation.
This is supposed to be for the Matchroom versus Queensbury show, you understand, in June on the undercard of Beterbiev versus Bivol. Thus, Eddie Hearn would know if it were done. He would know. He would be in the loop.
If that were true, in that situation, Wilder would have to be a matchroom fighter. He would have to be because Zhilei Zhang, he's with Queensbury.
He's currently contracted to Queensbury, so if Zhilei Zhang is the Queensbury Promotions fighter in all of this, that would have to make Wilder a matchroom fighter by default. Though if he were a matchroom fighter, I think Eddie Hearn would know about it.
I think somebody would have told him.
It's not finalized, and what it could be was one of several ideas, one of several potential matchups that's being thrown around. But according to Eddie, no, it's not finalized, it's not done, it's just an idea. It's hard to imagine that without a fight like this, Wilder can return to the forefront of the heavyweight division. He's still coming off that loss to Joseph, and you have to understand that in that time, Anthony Joshua has racked up 2 victories. In that time, Joseph has racked up 2 victories. Not just one over him, another over Zhilei Zhang.
Things are moving fast.
Where normally, fights like this take many, many months to make. Negotiations and all of that. These fights are happening quickly. It's all being made in a jiffy, as money is not an object, money is not an issue.
Deontay Wilder didn't make an appearance in the latest Saudi show, and he doesn't seem set to make an appearance in the next one, what is the Fury versus Usyk fight.
That's in May. The show in June, that's the Matchroom versus Queensbury show. And if Deontay Wilder doesn't make an appearance on it, well, what's that, 6 months?
Half the year.
If he doesn't fight 6 months into this year, you have to question, is this guy's heart even in it anymore? Whether it's against Zhilei Zhang or maybe Jarrell Miller, I could go for that. I could go for Wilder versus Miller.
I don't think Jarrell Miller's a Queensbury Promotions fighter. It has to be a Queensbury fighter.
Wilder versus Joyce. Deontay Wilder versus Joe Joyce. I could go for that in Saudi, or Wilder versus White in the UK. The bottom line is there are lots of options out there for Deontay Wilder, lucrative ones, but if he doesn't fight 6 months into the year...
What message does that send?
Not exclusive to what's happening in Saudi. Wilder could fight a guy like Dillian White at the O2 Arena in the UK on pay-per-view, and I think people would buy it.
Because of the history between them.
Which isn't really the point. The point is that there's enough out there already in Saudi Arabia and some other territories that if Wilder really wanted to fight, he would fight and he could fight. So the real question is, does he want to? That if 6 months pass and Wilder hasn't come back yet to rebound off that loss to Joseph, what the hell does he have left to give to the sport?
His heart might not be in it.
He is in his late 30s, and he may be contemplating retirement. If he does retire off this loss to Joseph Parker, it's hard to make the argument that he was one of the top 5 heavyweights of this era. I mean, you would have to put Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua.
That's 3.
Andy Ruiz, who beat Anthony Joshua, subsequently got beat by him. Joseph Parker.
He beat Andy. He beat Wilder.
That makes 5. And if Deontay Wilder retires off this loss to Joseph, well, that's the top 5. It would be. If he doesn't come back, he doesn't rack up a high-profile win of his own like Joseph has been doing.
Not in the top 5.
His legacy, as it were, would be aging badly, and Tyson Fury's victory over him really wouldn't mean as much.
In hindsight.
But let's see what he does.
If he does anything.